Hi everyone, it's Kelly from Kelly's Bead Boutique. So I've been making and teaching how to make jewelry for a very long time now. And one of the things that I hear all the time is, you make it look so easy. Well, that's because I think it is. So I'm going to take some simple parts and some simple techniques, and I'm going to teach you how to make your very own jewelry. So if you want to see what I'm making today, come and join me. All right, so to make our piece today, we have some of this beautiful detailed chain, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about how to use this chain and what we have to do to make this so that it fits you properly. I've also got some 1.5 millimeter leather cording. I have a tiara cast, a more round button. I have these 3-to-1 links, and I have a couple of these 2 millimeter crimp cord ends. I also have two different colors of 2/0 Matubo seed beads. So these are those large seed beads that have the big hole, and those will accommodate the 1.5 millimeter leather quite nicely. I also have some 4.5 millimeter 18 gauge jump rings, and we're going to use a fair amount of those, so I just kind of have a pile of them. And for our tools, I have a barrel knot tube, a pair of cutters, a pair of chain nose pliers, and a pair of bent chain nose pliers. So let's get started. All right, so there's two different colorways in this kit that is available. And when we send you your kit, you're going to probably get somewhere around just over 13 inches of your chain, which you are going to cut into two. And then you're going to have to determine the size of your bracelet. And I will try and explain a little bit better at the end once it's all completed and you've seen how it's gone together. I'll try to explain the sizing. So this should fit comfortably up to about a 7 3/4 inch wrist. You may have to add a little bit of an extender with some jump rings or something like that. So it's not going to fit a super large wrist, but it should fit most wrists. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create some barrel knots and using my seed beads and my tube. And this one is just going to be double barrel knots. I'm not going to be using the triple that I normally do. So I'm going to bring around 1 time, 2 times, take that end, go through the back side, pull the tube out, and of course I'm always holding on to it so that it doesn't fall apart. And so we just need to make sure we've got a little bit on the end there, something to hold on to, but also we're going to need to put that into our crimp tube. All right, so I'm going to put 1 in there, and then just pick a color of your bead, and we're going to give you enough that you will have, you should have 1 or 2 extra if you use all of them, but we like to make sure that you have an extra just in case something happens. Sometimes the odd bead has, something that the hole doesn't work or something, and so we want to make sure you've got enough beads. All right, so when I do my second one, I want to push that up nice and tight next to that bead. And now I'm going to alternate and use the other color. So we have one of this color is turquoise blue travertine, and this one is turquoise green bronze luster, and they go really nicely together. So a little tip when you're trying to get your barrel knot next to a bead is put your tube a little bit back on top of the bead, and then when you go around, your knot is going to naturally fall right next to the bead. If you put your tube down a little bit further away, you'll have a heck of a time trying to get that knot to move up the leather without sort of wrecking the leather. So that's just a nice little tip that I can give. So now these are not going to look exactly like my triple ones because they aren't a triple knot, but I didn't want to do a whole pile of, I didn't want to see a whole pile of leather in between. I wanted the beads to kind of shine a little bit, as it were. So you can see that I just take that and I'm going right close to that bead, and I'm putting the barrel knot tube right on top of that bead, and that just kind of helps us. You can see where it kind of comes off there, and then you don't have to do so much manipulating to get it up there. I'll do one more here, and then I'm going to just sort of carry on, and then I'll edit this out and then come back, because otherwise we'll just be sitting here watching me do the same thing over and over and over again. All right, and always take this and come through the back side. And then pull that out. Make sure that tail goes under. And then pull this nice and tight. All right, so that's what we want. We want to have them nice and neat and even next to each other. So I'm going to carry on with the rest of the beads and then I'll be right back. All right, so I'm just about to put my last one on here. And you'll see that there's a fair amount of leather left over, which is what we want because we're going to be creating a clasp with our leather. So this is what you want to see, something that looks just like that. So we've got our long row of beads here. And I will explain with the at the end a little bit more about sizing and how many beads you put on here, because I know you're probably thinking, well, how do I know how many beads to put on? So I have sort of like figured out a little bit of a formula. All right, so once you're completely sure about your sizing and you know that this is going to fit, I'm going to trim it off to about there. I do recommend, if you are cutting this back, that you start a little on the long side and then take your cord end and put it on like this. We don't want to see any of the leather coming through. If you do happen to see some of the leather, just take that off and trim it back. But I recommend going a little bit on the long side and then just trimming back. So now we're just going to crimp on either side, and you can do it like maybe once or twice just to make sure it's on there. If by chance you do cut it a little on the short side, you could put a dab of GS Hypo on there. You will probably need a little GS Hypo to complete this project. I forgot to bring some with me, but you will need some for the knots at the end on the clasp. So we just want to try and have these going the same direction. I mean, it is, you know, you can manipulate this fairly well, but we want to try to make sure they are going in a similar direction when we get them placed on there. All right, so this is what we're going to end up with. Okay, so now we're going to start assembling. So you're going to get a piece of chain and you're going to cut your piece of chain in half. So what I usually recommend is taking, you know, a piece of wire or a head pin or something and finding the center point, dangling it down, making sure that they're exactly the same length, and then trimming that. And then you're going to have to probably do some more trimming depending on your size, which I will explain in a bit. It's better just to kind of get it put together, and then you can sort of see what you need to do to make it to fit your wrist. Okay, so we're going to take one of our jump rings and open that up. And I always find it easier to place my bent chain hose like that, much easier to grab hold of that. So I'm going to take one side of my chain and I'm going to run it through the end of my connector here and tighten that up. Then I'm going to take another one of my jump rings and open that one up and put my beaded section through there and put that in the middle. And you'll find it's easier to turn your pliers over to do them back up. And you just kind of jiggle until it gets into that sort of sweet spot of being closed. So it's just learning how to use your tools properly to make them work for in the way that you need them to work. And then do that up. All right, so just jiggle, jiggle. Okay, so before we go on to the other end, one of the things that you need to know is that this chain, when we're attaching it, we need it to lay flat. So that's what it should look like as we attach it. So I have found the easiest way to do this is to open up one of my jump rings and have it ready to go. So I get that all open and ready to go. Now I'm going to take my link and kind of get it positioned. So I can see that that had turned when I put it down. So you kind of have to you might have to put your tools down. That's what I'm going to do right now. So this is a jump ring right there. So you see how this is like all nice and flat going along there? So I just kind of run my fingers down until it's kind of at the point where I can't do it anymore. and then I keep going until I know that that is the right direction. So this is why it helps to have your jump ring open and kind of run it in your plier, get it in the end of your chain, making sure that you don't turn that over. And now we're going to go on the outsidemost one and do that up. Now it doesn't matter quite so much for the leather and beaded piece, but I do kind of look a little bit to see if it's kind of going in the direction that I want. But again, it doesn't matter as much, but I sort of follow the natural way that it wants to curve and do that one up. And now we're going to get our next jump ring ready again. So I just find it kind of helps to have that ready, and then when I need to, I've got my hands sort of free. So I just follow that along, making sure those are all flat and going in the same direction, because you don't want it to do this and then it's going to lay funny on your wrist and it's not going to even out and make it look like it's the same length on both sides. That's probably the biggest thing that it will do, is make it look off. All right, so I'm going to come through that end and then come through the final end here and then do this up. And just jiggle until it kind of clicks in there. So now what we've got happening is this kind of a thing. So now this is slightly shorter than my chain, because every time you do this, it depends on your how tight you make your knots. But I'm just going to gently kind of pull on that a little bit, just a tiny bit. I wasn't really, you know, pulling hard, and try to get this. It's one of those ones that looks terrible when you're making it, and then when you put it on your wrist, it's so cute. So I got to put this like that. Honestly, I swear, this is really cute. There we go. It's just hard to get it to do what I want in my hand there. Okay, so that is the middle part there. Now we're going to take 3 jump rings and attach it to one end. And that is going to be for our button. Now, if you've seen me make jewelry before, you know that I like to have a lot of play in my jewelry. I don't like it when you have a real struggle trying to do up your clasps. And so if I was just to attach this with this button with one of the jump rings, it would be really a struggle to get it into the clasp. So you can try it with one. If you need to make it your piece longer, you can also add extra jump rings. That's this one already had jump rings attached to it. All right, let me get rid of those other 2 there. You know, sometimes I use these over and over again in different projects. So let me just take that out of there and pretend that wasn't there. And then we'll just attach this on here. So you can add more jump rings if you need to make it a little bit longer. But I don't know if I would just put one on. I think it would be challenging to do it up. So now you can see when it folds back on itself, it just kind of goes where it's supposed to go. If I had 2 less, it would go like that. And it would make it tight when you're trying to put it through the leather piece. Okay, so now we've got a nice little chunk of leather here. So what I'm going to do is I am going to take 1 more jump ring. And we give you lots of jump rings. I think you would get like 15 in this kit. So you can, you know, do what you need to do. Make it the length that you need it to be quite easily. All right. Okay, so now I'm going to take my leather and I am going to run it through that jump ring there. And I want to leave, you know, maybe about 3 inches or so on this side. Now I'm going to show you sort of a little trick for something. I got a comment on one of my last videos asking what to do with leather bracelets if you can't, or if you don't know somebody's size. So I'm going to show you what I would do with that. All right, so I'm going to make a barrel knot to attach this. So I've got my short piece on the bottom and my long piece on the top, and I'm going to make a 3 wrap. So just go around 3 times. And then come through the back side and then pull that tight. Again, I'm always holding on to that knot so it doesn't go where I don't want it to. And I want that to be fairly close to that jump ring, but not so tight that you have no play in it, you know. Okay, so now I would have some GS Hypo, but I forgot to bring it. So I would, at the end of this, I would take GS Hypo and put that on either side of the knots on any location that you've made a knot here. Not in this, but on your clasp, because your clasp is what is going to take sort of the punishment. And now to do the next part of the clasp, we're going to do 3 wraps and take the end, go through the back side of the tube, pull that out. And then right before I tighten it up, I'm just going to measure with my button to make sure that that is the right size, and that looks pretty much perfect. So I'm going to take my thumbnail and place it right where I want that barrel knot to end, and that way it doesn't move down. Now, here's a little trick that you can use for, especially like if you're making something at a craft fair or when you really just don't know somebody's size. So you could cut this off right here and then just put a little glue on each side and be done with it. Or what you can do is you can create a secondary knot. Now, the first time I went to Vegas, I actually bought a wrap bracelet there years ago, and it had 3 of these on the end, which was a bit overkill. But it was good for me because I've always had very large wrists. Even when I was super thin, I had very large wrists. It's just the way I'm built. And so for me, I was able to actually get a bracelet that fit, which I never can. So you could actually do that on here. We've got enough leather that you could create 3 extra knots on the end here. So that way, if somebody doesn't know what size they are, they can try it on with this one. If that doesn't work, they can try it on with this one. So let's say that they only need it here. Well, they can just trim it right there, and it's not going to change the integrity of the bracelet because you will have put a little bit of glue on the knot right there and then a little bit right there, just like you're just going to put it on either side of the knot where it joins. So they can either have it this length or they can have it that length. So it can just be trimmed. So again, you could put it a third one if you want to make like a really big jumbo size one. So, all right, so I'm going to, for my purposes, I'm trimming that off, but that gives you some options as far as the sizing goes. All right, so now I'm going to do my very best to try and explain the sizing. So, like I said, when you get your kit, if you decide to buy one, you will get a length of chain and you will cut it in half. So what I have sort of figured out is that for every 2 lengths that you cut off, you and also removing 1 bead, you'll have to like cut off 2 lengths of chain and 1 bead. That creates about a half an inch, like maybe like 3/8 to a half an inch. I don't know, somewhere in around there, of a difference in your length. So this sample is on the small side. So this is going to fit about a 6.5 to a 6 3/4. And maybe what I'll do is I was going to do this beforehand, but I think what I'll do is I'll actually count the links, 41. Okay, so 41 links of chain, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 beads will give you approximately a 6.5 to a 6 3/4 inch bracelet. Okay, so now, like I said, you can make this a little bit longer by adding some extra jump rings. You could put 2 more jump rings on the button here, and then that will extend it just a little bit. But you kind of have to pre-think about your sizing before you start making this middle section. All right, so this is Kelly in the future. So when I was editing my video, I realized that this probably wasn't the best way to construct it. Now, I've been making jewelry for so long that I can somehow always make things work. But if you buy a kit or if you want to try this one at home, I want to make sure that I'm setting you up not to fail. I want to make sure that you can put this together and not say, well, my gosh, that was just so difficult in the sizing. So what I would actually recommend is that you don't make this first. In the video, you will see that I will make this first, and then I sort of put it all together. What I would actually do is make the outer part. So get this part to fit, because what you can do is you can actually attach your chain. You can like just attach it with your jump rings. You can attach your button on the end. You can make your clasp, and then you can get it to fit. So what I would do is I would not cut my chain. I would just keep taking, you know, a little bit off and getting that part to fit. Once you have the basis of this, have this part all constructed so that you know that it fits, then you can start creating this. So what I would do is on the end, I would put one of my little crimps on, and then I would make my first knot and then start adding my beads until you come down to where you need to end here. So I hope that's going to make a little bit more sense. I just don't want to have you get frustrated when you're creating your pieces, because this one actually is not hard at all to make. The hardest part is the making sure that these three are all the same. So just sort of construct it backwards to the way that I tell you in the video, and I think you will have a lot more success. And I really hope that you give this a try. It is so cute on. All right, back to the video. I'm going to keep on editing, because if you make the middle section too long, it's not going to work out. So this is the one with the, I'm just going to, like, normally I would, like, you know, clean everything up and roll into the second part of this video, but I'm just going to carry on. So this is the one that is made a little bit smaller, and this is what it looks like on your wrist. It is so pretty when it's on your wrist. It's one of those ones that it's horrible to take a picture of because it needs to be on a wrist. It looks just so cute. And I would put it on mine, but you know, my wrist just, it never looks good on camera. So that is what it would look like. And then you would have this button on the back side for your clasp, which I think is so cute. So that's the silver and the turquoise one. And then the other one we have is this, this is turquoise dark green travertine and yellow dark travertine. And so I've got the antique bronze on there. So that's what this one would look like on your wrist. Now this one, so if that one, I think I said that had 41 links, then this has 43 links, and it has one more bead on there. And then this one will fit about a 7, about a 7 to a 7.5, I think. I've got this fancy little bracelet mandrel thing here, but it doesn't really fit under the camera. So yeah, this is about a 7 to a 7.5. So just by those extra couple links, it's just that much, it's that much bigger. So, and again, I'm just going to see if this is the same measurement. So from that one to that one, yeah, it's about 3 inches from this knot to this knot. I do want to mention, when you are cutting your chain, you want to make sure that if you start on a link it'll be this direction, sorry. You want to make sure that if you start on a link that is flat like this, you want to end on it. So you don't want to cut one this way and then cut one that way, because it will not lay flat. So you have to make sure that if you start on a flat like that, well, it's always going to be flat. So you just have to make sure that there's like sort of even numbers. So I hope you did enjoy it. If you did, please make sure to give me a thumbs up. Leave me a comment, because I do love to hear from everybody, and I get so many wonderful comments. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, please make sure that you do so. I'm trying to upload at least once a week now. We also are live every Wednesday on our Facebook channel and on YouTube. So there you go. So if you're looking for this kit, it will be linked in the description below this video. You just click on the link and it'll take you directly to my fully secure website, where you can shop for this kit, all the other kits we have, and all the parts that we have to go with everything. So I want to thank you so much for watching, and we will see you on the next one.